Okay, what's up? I'm gonna be doing chapter 10 of the Big Java, but you know, I do like the entire summary all the time. But this time I just want to focus on like potential compile errors and like runtime errors because there's always one question or like a couple questions that are like, if this happens, what will the syntax be, or what is the outcome? Compile time, runtime. So I just want to go through like whatever errors Big Java has. So if a control error, let's start. I'm only going to go over the ones that are like compile time and runtime errors because those are probably the most important. Okay, let's start with 101. Is this, if you compare, this confusing Yeah, I don't see anything about any runtime or compile. It doesn't think about compile, so let's go on to the next one. No. Okay, shadowing, I wouldn't call it technically, it's not a compile time, or it's not a compile time or runtime error, but shadowing is something I'll talk about shadowing. Shadowing instance fields is basically when instead of calling the instance fields from the superclass, you're calling the instance fields from the subclass. So what this basically means is that if you're ever trying to call a method from the superclass, you're not using the like variables. You're not using the you're not using the instance fields of the superclass. If I said interface or whatever, I meant like the instance fields. So like when you call the instance fields, you'll be using the ones from the subclass and not the superclass. And this basically makes it so that whenever you're trying to call a method from the superclass, the instance variables from the superclass are not being updated. So when you return, the return won't match up to what you want it to be because you're using the instance fields from the subclass, and those will be updated, but not the instance fields from the superclass. Yeah, let's say I don't think there's no compile time or runtime error. It's just like a logic error, which might be on the test, not sure. Okay, failing to invoke superclass methods. Okay, a common error. Yeah, okay. So this is basically like the recursion error, basically. So essentially what we're doing here is that we're calling the method withdraw, and we're calling withdraw in itself. So basically every single time it's just going to call itself and again and again and again. And this is basically like infinite recursion, which is a runtime error, I'm pretty sure. So if you ever see a method that is calling itself and it's not using the super, if it's not using super and it's just calling itself, right now it should just be an infinite recursion. So that's probably going to be a runtime error because it just keeps on going. Yeah. Superclass default constructor. Okay. This one is just like if a superclass, if the subclass does not call a superclass constructor, then it's made default basically. So let's go up here. If there's no super dot initial balance or anything, it will be a, what is it? It will just result to default if there's nothing here. But if there is no default constructor in the superclass, then it will be a compile time error, or the compile reports an error. So I think that'd be a compile time error. So I think that might be on the test. So like if you see a superclass and you see a subclass and you see that the superclass has no default constructor and you see the subclass has no super or has super blank, it's probably going to be a compile time error because the superclass does not have any default constructor. Maybe on the test. Unsure. Okay. You cannot construct an object once is an abstract method in the compiler. Okay. So what this is basically saying is that if you ever try to call or you try to initialize an object of an abstract class, it will cause an error. What error is it? Compile? The compiler flagged down an attempt. Does that mean it's a compile time error? I think so. But I'm not sure. Like, these are all good. Wait, let me, like, okay. What error will you if you create object compile time? Okay, so whenever it says compiler, so maybe they'll come up like someone calls an abstract method and makes an object, like right here. You see bank account. Okay, that's fine. And account equals new bank account. Not okay. So here's the thing, right? Bank account can be like, it can be in the front, but it can't be in the back because the back is like literally the class it's deriving from. So whenever it says new bank account, that means it's coming from the bank account class, which is not allowed. But it can be in the front because that just is basically like something completely different. It has nothing to do with it like deriving from an account. It doesn't have to do with like being a bank account, but this literally means that it will derive from a bank account. Yeah. For private, this is not like a compile time or runtime. Maybe logic accidental package access. I don't think it's compile or runtime. I think this is like security breaches. Okay. So basically what this is saying is making, so in the superclass, if a method is public, it has to be public in the subclass. You can't override this withdraw method by making it private. That will cause a compile time error if you try to override a method and change it from being public to private, making it less accessible. I want to try something because it's saying like when it's reduced, but what if it's like increased? You know what I'm saying? Like, give me 1 second. Okay, I'm using BlueJ, but it should be the same. Yeah, I have everything I want to be set up. Okay, let's start off with bus. Okay, so this is gonna be our superclass bus. And as you can see, it has public int yip as its thing or whatever, right? Now I want to take this and make it override it. Private int yip. Uh, yeah, there's nothing in there. What is the error? Cannot over car cannot override yip in bus. Okay, it's trying to make it less when it was public to private. But now I want to try something. If I made this public and I made this private, will that switch anything? I never tried it. What happens when you make a private one and make it public? Does it matter? Or is this completely new? A whole new thing. We'll say returns two. This one returns 1. Oh my goodness. Return 1. Currently nothing seems to be. Now I want to test. Is this. Wait, give me 1 second. Let me pull up my tester. Okay, here we have our tester. And if I make a bus equals new bus. Boom. And if I have bus car equals new car, and I have system.out.print bus.yip. What's wrong? Yip has private access in bus. What does this mean? Oh, does it mean that it can only be used in this? Okay. And if I do car, yip, and I compile, what's wrong with this? Yip has private access in bus. So maybe it can only be used, or maybe if I do public int vip, and then I do return yip, and then would this work? If I remove this and I made this dip and I compile, what's wrong with this? Undeclared method yip. Okay, so this can only be called in our bus class. That's so cool. So if you ever have a private, I might be stupid, but if you have a private method, it's only in this one class. That's cool, that's cool. And if you do have this being public, if this was public, yip, then the car class cannot have yip being private. This cannot be private, or else it's a compile time error. See, when I'm trying to compile, it's not letting me compile. That's cool, that's cool. And what is it? Making inherited methods less accessible. So some public to private. Nice. The more you know. It's apply. Okay, this requires. Okay, so basically this is saying that if you put a toString in all your classes, it's an easy way to fix any errors because you can just like do the toString method and you'll be able to find, like, you get to get all the like data from it if you make your own toString, because usually toString, if it's unoverrided, if it's just from the object class, then what is it? Then it's just gonna show the address. But if you override it and make it your own and call all the data, then you can check whatever data you have and see if it's how it's different or whatever errors it's causing. But there's no compile time. It's just a suggestion. Defining equals method. Okay. So this is basically for the equals method, which is in the object class yet again. Public boolean equals coin other. Don't do that. Okay, so what it's basically saying is don't make it a coin. Don't make it coin others. See, it says do not. But I think it'd be better if you did boolean equals object other object. Okay, I don't know. This is what error this is. It's basically just saying if you ever make the equals method, if you're overriding it, to ensure that the remedy is to ensure that you use this so that like it works out. Just use the object class. I don't think it's anything more than that. I don't know if there's any compile time error. Unfortunately. So what it's basically saying is that if you make it coin here instead of object, then you're not overriding the method from the object class. You're making your own one. So then you technically have two. So what it's saying is it has to be object here in order for the compiler to know that you're actually overriding it. So the compiler will check it to be like very like precise. It has to be boolean equals and an object. It cannot be any other class. So the compiler checks, and if it's all the same, then it's considered as overridden. But if it's not the same, like if it's coin instead of object, then it's a whole new method. Forgetting to clone. I don't know what this is. Cloning. I don't know what the cloning. What is cloning? You should use the cloning. I don't know. I don't think there's any errors. I don't know. Okay, scripts often have poor error checking and are difficult to adapt to new circumstances. Scripting languages lack many of the structuring and safety mechanisms such as classes and type checking by the compiler. I don't know what this means. What is it talking about? Yeah, I don't know what this is talking about. I don't think it's going to be on the test. By default, components have 0 width and 0 height. So in the GUI, if you have a okay, so this is basically saying if you don't set it, then it'll just be 0, 0. And then if you do, and then to fix this is that you can set preference size, which basically lets you choose what the default would be. I guess. So it's basically just says, oh, I want this to be the size, I guess. I want this to be my size for my whatever, my text. Code reuse. Okay, how reuse, copy, and rename is still error prone. Yeah, I don't know. That was all the errors in the big Java. I feel like those were good. They might be on the test, so probably very important to look over. Like look over them in the text yourself, check to see if you understand each error, and make sure you know why it's a compile. Most of them were compile. I think only one of them was runtime. The only one that was runtime, I think, was the infinite recursions one, and everything else was compile, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, mostly, even if you don't know, if you ever have, I'm not saying to do this, but like, if it's ever a question by the book, it's probably gonna be compiled based on what we saw. But look, try your own things. Maybe go to your like coding app and try all these out. Make sure you understand why. And if you want me to go over anything else for chapter 10, let me know. But that was for errors. Bye bye.